Ladies and gentlemen, all of us have our own stories about how we got to where we are now. I want to tell you mine, to explain what guides me in my life and politics. And this is the right place to tell that story because it's our story, the British Indian story. The story of a generation of people who brought to this country a shared set of values. Hard work and sacrifice, the importance of family, education, and service to our community. Values that don't just underpin our shared history, but point the way to how we might reimagine the UK-India relationship for the future. My story starts nearly a lifetime ago, when my grandmother bravely said goodbye to her small children, boarded her first ever plane in East Africa, and, without a job or a home to go to, flew to Britain to build a better life. I can't imagine the courage that must have taken. It took them months to save enough for my grandfather to follow with their children, including my 15-year-old mother. Years later, I brought my grandfather to Parliament, just after I was first elected as an MP. We were walking through Westminster Hall when he suddenly stopped to call someone. After he got off the phone, he told me he'd spoken to the first person they'd ever lodged with when they'd arrived in England. Because, he said, I just wanted to let them know where I was standing. I grew up in Southampton. My overriding memory of childhood is how hard my parents worked. Dad was an NHS GP and worked extra jobs in the evenings and weekends. Almost every night of my childhood, he worked until the early hours, writing up patient notes and referral letters. Mum owned a pharmacy, Sunak Pharmacy, on Burgess Road. Our life was built around that small business. Out of school, I'd serve customers or do deliveries, help dispense medicines, do the bookkeeping. And every Sunday, we'd pile into the car to clean the shop, all of us, together, the whole family. It was a family business. That's just what you do. My parents worked hard because they had to, because they wanted to give my brother and sister and I the chance of a better life. Above all, that meant education. I had the privilege of going to an incredible school. But I wasn't a scholarship child. Every penny was paid for by my parents' sacrifice. I don't know if I can ever thank them enough. So I learned early on that family matters. Families nurture our children and teach them good conduct, support us unconditionally, pass on culture, religion, identity. No government could even begin to replicate the profound bonds family forms. And like so many British Indian families of all faiths, we came together to serve the community, and still do. This Sunday, I'll be at our mandir in Southampton, where I grew up, for our family prayer day. We'll cook and serve lunch for the whole community, just as we do every year. Because that's the lesson I learned from my parents, an ethic of service. Whether working in the shop or delivering medicines to elderly people at home, or even just out and about in town, people would stop and thank my mum and dad. I found that incredibly inspiring. And ultimately, that's why I became an MP. I want to have that same impact on my North Yorkshire constituency as they did on our hometown. So that's my story, a story of hard work, sacrifice, education, family, service, values that still guide me today. My story, my family's story, is really our story, the story of 1.5 million British Indian people. Just think about what we contribute. The latest president of the CBI was born in Hyderabad. The most recent but one chair of the Royal Society is a biologist born in Tamil Nadu. An artist born in Mumbai built a sculpture in the London Olympic Park. And those stories are only possible because of the people who came before us, including many of you in this room tonight. My generation owes you a debt of gratitude. And every day I'm in this job, I will work hard to make you proud. Because I know I have a responsibility to represent not just my family's hopes and dreams, but the hopes and dreams of so much of our diaspora. So I want to take this opportunity to thank my parents, but also the countless others who struggle, broke down the door for my generation to walk through. Thank you. Those values don't just define our past, they point the way to our future. Because ultimately, however strong our shared history, those of us who care about the relationship between the country of our origin and the nation we call home must avoid falling into the trap of nostalgia. India isn't looking to the past, and nor can we. We need to move forward. Because the UK does not have a natural right to sit at the table with one of the world's largest, fastest growing, and most dynamic economies. We must earn it. Right now, there are something like 900 million Indian people under the age of 35. They are smart. They are increasingly well educated. They are ambitious. And when they look out at the world, we can't take for granted they will look to the UK. So the question is urgent. How do we reimagine the UK-India relationship? Well, let me briefly tell you 3 things we are doing. 3 ways we're building our future as a partnership of equals. First, people. The UK is making our visa system for international talent the most competitive in the world. New policies like the Global Talent Visa should send a message to the brightest Indian talent: we want you here. You will be welcome here, and we will back you to succeed here. For the UK, high talent immigration is absolutely core to how we view ourselves as a country, especially in a post-Brexit world. As a child of immigrants, I can testify to the openness, fairness, and yes, warmth with which British society welcomes talented individuals who seek to contribute to our society and become part of our communities. As tonight makes clear, you will be joining a vibrant, respected, and successful Indian community. So if you want to build a great business, undertake great science, or create great art, the UK will be the most rewarding karma bhumi you will find. But the UK doesn't have a monopoly on opportunity. too much of the migration conversation is about how many Indians come to the UK. This is a partnership of equals. So we need to make it easier for British students to study in India, to go to incredible institutions like the Indian Institute of Science or the Tata Institute of Fundamental Research. I welcome the Government of India's initiative to internationalise Indian higher education. And I want to see us doing more to reinforce that living bridge, travelling in both directions between our countries. Now, as well as migration, the second way we're reimagining our relationship is trade and investment. Total trade between our two countries was £24 billion last year. The second largest inward investment into the UK was from India. But we must go further. Our respective PMs have agreed that we'll conclude the majority of talks for a free trade agreement in time for Diwali. And one of the biggest opportunities for trade is financial services. Now, if India is to achieve the economic growth to which it aspires, it will need to mobilise large amounts of capital from around the world. The flow of savings from the West to attractive investment opportunities in fast-growing India will be one of the defining movements of capital in our working lives. And the UK, given our strengths in financial services, can play an important role in helping this to happen. Imagine the possibilities. Indian companies listing here in the UK, British fintech startups launching new apps in India, and new Indo-British firms emerging, with a presence in both countries, drawing on the greatest strengths of each and targeting global markets. And that points to the third way we're reimagining our relationship: innovation. I sometimes think that our perception of India simply hasn't caught up with reality. India has the third highest number of tech unicorns in the world, the second highest smartphone penetration in the world. Indian startups like Zoho, Freshworks, and Mu Sigma are remarkable not only for the incredible value they've created, but for the world-class products and services they offer. India's technology story has evolved far beyond leveraging lower worker costs and is fast creating some of the cutting-edge products of the future. I believe science and technology can become the core of our reimagined relationship. UK and Indian expertise working together to spread innovation in a partnership of equals between our two countries. And there's no better example than the Covishield vaccine. Over 1 billion doses delivered. Arthur, thank you. So that's the way forward. That's how I imagine the future of UK-India relations. A relationship rooted in those enduring values of hard work, sacrifice, education, family, and service. But a relationship reimagined, where the brightest talent from both our countries travel back and forth to study and work, where we are close trading partners on goods and services, and where we freely exchange world-class ideas and innovation, all as a partnership of equals. 60 years after my Naniji boarded a plane in East Africa, on a warm, sunny evening in October, her great-granddaughters, my girls, played in the street outside our home, painted rangoli on the doorstep, lit sparklers and diyas, had fun like so many other families on Diwali. Except the street was Downing Street, and the door was the door to number 11. I'm incredibly proud of where I came from. It will always be an enormous part of who I am. and it brings me joy to live and belong in a country where, for all our faults, for all our challenges, someone like me can become Chancellor. Our task now is to make sure that that's not the end of the British Indian story, but the beginning. Thank you.